Good morning, gents.
Good morning.
And here we are once again, but amazingly, we're actually starting a new series this morning. And I know that you're conflicted because you're seeing on the screen week 1, a new title, not too far from our last title, but the same slide. So let me explain. Last week we were together and we were at week 199, and I said, I just wasn't sure how we were going to wrap this up, and I wasn't. And it's not for lack of things to say. It's right conversely. It's about what do I need to cut out. And so, as I was reflecting this last week, preparing. Number one is I was overwhelmed with a sense of gratefulness in the sense that you guys have given me for years and years and years a wonderful gift to be able to come here on Wednesday mornings and to be able to share stuff that's from my heart. I have never heard a complaint about, who would dream of putting a series together 199 weeks? That's really crazy. But you have given me the gift in allowing me to grapple with things that are obviously very, very important to me. You see me once a week, and some of you see me more than once a week, but I think about this all the time. This is something. This whole subject of manhood and initiation and the father-son relationship has been over the last 13 years or so become very, very important to me. And you're allowing me the gift of sharing those things verbally, and I'm growing, I'm changing, I'm thinking about it and grappling with it, and I get a platform in order to do that, and you've given me that gift, and I hold that very preciously, and always have. So the second thing is we've just looked at the life of Jacob, 199 weeks, and isn't it time for something new? Well, you're probably saying yes. But what I would like to propose is that over the next, 10, 12, maybe 15 weeks or so, I'm not sure how long it will be, but taking what I have learned, what we have learned collectively, and I'm going to really reduce it down into phases of Jacob's life. Now, I have developed this in the last 4 years, and I get opportunity to go out and actually teach, pieces of what we've worked through together, systematically through the week. So there's material I'm going to be pulling, but I've actually summarized a general mapping of a man's journey. And what we're going to do is go through all these we're not going to go through all the verses. We're just going to group these. These are, you can't see them, but they're actually verses, sections of Genesis. We're going to group these into snapshots of similar pictures, and we're going to plug them into this mapping that I've created as a result of this study, One Man's Journey, and then look at that in light of our own lives and just ponder it. We'll have lots of table time and look at this, and it's actually something that I would like to package and as a summary of what we've been grappling with for all these years. So I've called it, for lack of a better term, What is a Man? And that is in times past, that'd be a crazy subject. Well, of course we know what a man is. Well, today, in our culture, this is really up for grabs. And again, this is part of the whole thing, and I think about this, and I'm going to be called to be addressing this whole subject whenever I get opportunity to talk on the subject of what is a man. Here National Geographic last year, January, had an entire issue devoted to what they called the gender revolution, and several articles in there. I read the whole book. I read the whole magazine cover to cover. Some are better than others in there. But there was one article, The Making of a Man, and you can't read that sub line there. It says, how does a boy become a 21st century man? And then it states, some ways are better than others. So that's what that subject is all about. And that's in that issue of National Geographic. So it is a relevant topic. The male today, men are in trouble. There is just the data points to the fact that men are in trouble. The angry young man. All shooters are male. And most, as far as I know, all white. You don't see female shooters. By and large, the terror, the terrorist movement, males. There are some exceptions, but we have lots of problems regarding our males are creating problems within our culture. Primarily, all I can really address is our culture, to the best of my ability. But we've got some issues. So I'd like to spend some weeks and talk about this, and they'll give you guys a lot of opportunity to be able to talk around the tables about the subject at hand as we trace the development of a boy to a man. And of course, we'll be looking at the model of Jesus and what I have learned. After this, I'll just propose what I would like to do once we finish this up, which is kind of a transitional into the next time together, Lord willing, is I'd like to look at Jesus in one of the Gospels. And I haven't decided. I'm narrowing it down to two. And I'd like to do a series on the life of Jesus and as the model man. Again, because I'm kind of biased. So anyway, that's where we are, and that's where we're going to be here, at least in the next few weeks. So what is Man Week 1? We're going to be looking lessons from the life of Jacob. Now this is the template of what I have compiled over the last 4 years, and then when I get opportunity to go out and speak to men's groups and so forth, I always work from this model. And this model has, two major pieces to this model. Is here there's this section over here, and then there's this dotted line here with the second section here. And one is called the first half, and the last piece is called the second half. Well, that correlates to that graph, that first slide I have, where there's a section on the left side and then a section on the right hand. That's where I divided Jacob's life, first half, second half. And there are subjects and subjects and goals and framework of thinking that relate distinctively to the first half of life, and there are those that relate to the second half of life. Say most of us in this room are second half of life people. Some of you may still holding on, but I don't think so. And so we're going to be we're going to kind of go through here, and we're going to look at these different phases. There's basically one major divider, first half, second half. There are things that are important in the first half that really lose importance in the second half, and items in the second half of life that really, in the first half of life, you're really kind of clueless until you actually reach this point in here. Now, I've subdivided the second half of life into two sections. Notice the wiggly line. It's when life really starts pushing in. And it seems like in our culture it's getting later and later in life, but I would roughly say this is in our 40s or so. In 30, I think this is getting later in life. I'm thinking of late 20s, mid 30s, maybe into the 30s, up in here, when life's responsibilities start entering in. You know, people are getting married later and later in life. So in this area, this would be primarily 40s, could be even into the 50s. But then hopefully we as men, later in our life, we take these experiences that we had, and I call it the way of descent or the way of wisdom. Hopefully we then become sages. We become people who are life givers to others, and we pass on those things that we have learned and to the next generation. We're much more focused on others than we are on my career and you know, meanness. Now that's not true in every case, but then there's some alternative paths that we'll look at. But this is the template that we'll be working from, and we're gonna now plug in Jacob's snapshots. Think of them as snapshots, little pictures, and we're gonna move our way through in the weeks ahead. And I'm thinking, you know, I don't know, 10 weeks or so is probably at the most. You know, we'll, you don't want to quote me. I don't know. That may be embarrassing, but I don't want to belabor this because I'd like to package it, not create another Encyclopedia Britannica. So I'd like to reduce it. So, but there's a lot to talk about here. A lot of stuff that pertains not only to where we are in a culture, but to as we reflect in our own lives and those people that now we're, you know, that we're impacting and over and have opportunity to give input into. So anyway, that's where that is. So we're gonna launch out with group one, the group one snapshots, and where that pertains is my little box pointing over here. We're going to be talking about the first half of life, and the key word here is ascent. Ascent means to climb. It means to go up. And that's what the first half of life is about. It's about ascending. It's about moving up. It's about becoming. What am I going to do? And you know, who am I going to go through life with? And you know, what is it going to be? And how much money I'm going to make? You know, it's about all that. So that's what we're looking at. It's our focus area. So as we look at each section, I'll use this template and I'll plug in new snapshots here, and then we'll say that pertains to this focused area here. So if someone could read Genesis, if you guys could get ready, we're going to read these texts. The first one will be Genesis 25:26. It is the occasion of the grabbing of the heel, actually at birth of Jacob. And then if somebody could get ready to read Genesis 25:31, that's when he makes the deal with his brother to buy the birthright. And then 3 is Genesis 27:19, I am Esau, where he dresses up like his brother. So
everything around us enforces the idea that life ought to get continually better. The ideal is that we should strive and build towards higher and higher degrees of predictability and comfort. This belief is deeply embedded within our culture, driving what we value and grow to expect. This is not wrong, but it's only a portion of the story. Every young man must ascend. He must come to know experientially what can be accomplished through his own power. The goal of this is to establish some sense of identity, who he is as a person. This formative process is oftentimes confusing and even painful. He wants independence, but he does not yet know what that looks like. He longs for Dad's affirmation. If Dad's not around, the young man will sometimes resort to destructive behavior just to get Dad's attention. On the other hand, if Dad is overly engaged, attempting to corral his son's behavior, it most often leads to frustration and anger by all parties involved. The son must ascend. The smart dad understands that this may be a difficult and lengthy process. The smart dad understands that conventional tools such as logic and control are not effective. Definition and jointly agreed upon boundaries are important. The son needs Dad's support. Dad needs faith resulting in patience to ride out these formative years.
So that I did this I created this a couple years ago, and it was about this whole subject of ascent, that ascent is necessary, but it can really be rough years for everybody that lives in that household. So I threw that in. I just threw that in there so you could see it. So getting back to the idea, we're talking about ascending. We're talking about looking at Jacob's life, and if somebody could read that first verse, Genesis 25 through 26. 25, 26.
Afterward, his brother came forth with his hand holding on to Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob, and Isaac was 60 years old when she gave birth to them. Sorry, I got confused, Isaac and she.
So, okay, this was our first glimpse of Jacob, his first action. This is Jacob's first action. Grabbing of the heel, so therefore they named him Jacob, which means supplanter. And what do you think of this verse? What do you think of when you look at our study? What are your thoughts in regard, what does this depict?
Well, it depicts pretty prophetic, because Jacob doesn't know what he's doing. He's a newborn infant.
Yeah.
But the situational setup is sort of prophetic.
Sort of prophetic. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, the writer of this read this into it. He was dragging his heel. Well, Jacob's a newborn infant. He doesn't know what he's doing. So seeing this happen, they're saying this is symbolic of something that's going to happen, that's going to be representative of his life.
Yeah, okay. Prophetic in the sense of tying it to Jacob. And certainly as we've studied Jacob, we would nod yes, wouldn't we?
Yeah. I mean, he didn't. The point is, it's totally prophetic. There's nothing innate in this baby right now that says, I'm going to grab my twin's heels and come out of the birth canal.
Exactly. However, the writer deemed it important to pen that for a purpose.
And not just the writer.
Okay.
The parents, too. They're the ones that named him, right?
Yeah, yes.
It wasn't Moses that
Yeah,
named him.
Right. Yeah. So, what do you think? Bill has said it's prophetic and tying it to Jacob's behavior in time. Let's branch out a little bit. What correlation is there within us as manness? How does this, or how could this relate to the guys in this room?
I think it could relate to the sibling rivalry type of thing, and where the younger brother or sibling, is always kind of second best to the firstborn or the elderly or whatever kind of thing. I found that in my family. It was definitely whatever, the inferiority complex or whatever on the lower ones, I was the oldest boy, so I was in good shape.
I was the eldest too, yeah. But there is, I think the data shows across the board, there are certain characteristics of different, they call it sibling order. The firstborn, the middle, and the last. And there are certain denominator. I mean, I always kind of look at Steve because he's the most well-informed in these whole subject matters. So if I'm getting a positive, if I'm getting a nod, that means I can go ahead and flap for a little bit here. If he's going like this, then just shut up. You know, you're not going to okay, how about the second one? Somebody read that second one. Uh, 25:31.
Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright now."
Okay, Jake, is that the whole verse?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sell me your birthright. Okay, what is the background of that story?
I'm hungry.
Well, that was the opportunity,
Yeah.
but what's the background.
Well, I think I would say they weren't being frivolous. I mean, Esau comes in starving, hungry. Jacob's got this lentil soup. I'm so hungry, I don't care. I'll give you your birthright. Okay, just give me the soup. To what degree they took the gravity to it, I'm sure Jacob had a lot of thinking about it, but can you really sell your birthright? It was an interesting statement of Esau's lack of respect for it. But, gosh, we are teenagers and stuff like that. We would make these incredible statements.
Bonehead.
I hate you. That had no serious merit to it.
Yeah, they were, Bill, you hit on several things there. They're thinking as teenagers. Now, their actual age, I don't know. But this is, as we read this text and this kind of interaction, decision making, that's a teenage kind of thing, decision to make. Oh yeah, I'm hungry. I'll sell my birthright. Think back, guys. Think of bonehead things you did as a teenager, and you go, God, no wonder I'm still here. Yeah. Anybody else? And this, but yet Jacob, on the other hand, this is premeditated here. He has set his brother up. Jacob has had some pre-planning. The soup just happened to be there at the right time, and he knew, and so it actually, I don't think Jacob is a bad guy at all. Jacob knows what's of value. I think he's way smarter than his brother. Yeah. And he's out to manipulate his brother. There's the term I have there. He's going to manipulate in order to get my share. What's true of those two phrases, the 1 and 2 on the right? Me. The key word is share. My share. What I have come to believe is that mankind, because of what occurred in Genesis chapter 3, is operating, all of mankind, we're operating out of a state of deficit. A deficit. And where that's illustrated and seen for the first time in Scripture is where at the point of disobedience in Genesis chapter 3, where they went against the Word of God, the first action was they clothed themselves. The man and the wife knew intuitively at that point. The Scriptures calls it, in the day you eat of it, you will die. So here is what this means. They clothed themselves because they now saw themselves in a different state. They had to do something in order to correct their state. They had to add something to their being because they were no longer acceptable to themselves. And so the first thing they do is they clothe themselves. What is very cool about this is the next verse is you see you see God in the garden saying, Adam, where art thou? Oh, I love that. Because I for one, believe that is the representative of the heart of God for all of mankind. God is the seeker. God is the continual seeker in the story. And he seeks out Adam, and Adam and Eve. Although they're separate, they're hiding from God because now they're in a different state. They have put themselves in this state of separateness. Yes, Bill?
I don't know if this is helpful, but my brother in his adult life, his 30s, became very mentally ill and schizophrenic. And of course, the question that folks ask, well, should we have seen this coming? And on reflection, looking back at things in his life, we saw these signs that we only saw by looking backwards from that point of perspective. Yeah, so I think the parents here, who's ever the storyteller, the writer that's reviewing this, is looking back on these incidences, which of themselves may not have been significant. But by the time you get to the point he deceives his dad to get his birthright, all of a sudden, oh yeah, I remember when he did this, and I remember he did this. Mm-hmm. So the significance was more on reflection, and I don't think back there they saw him to do this, oh, this is going to happen. I think after it happened, they went back and saw him, remember, oh yeah, he grabbed his heel. Oh yeah, he conned him out of some soup, you know, that kind of stuff is more
Right.
looking backwards, just to say, oh, this has been coming for a long time.
Right.
And I don't know how that helps it, but it's sort of like, in the events of those things, I don't think they were aware of the significance
Yeah.
until later and looked back and said, oh yeah.
So, given that, and I'm going back to what Tatsi said earlier, the birth order, I am one that believes that the state of all of mankind actually transcends both of those. The birth order rules or characteristics are just a manifestation of a bigger issue. And what you're saying, looking back, you go, oh no, now we can understand, is all indicative of pointing to something much larger, and that much larger is the fact that we as human beings. Now this is all opinion here, but it's what I've built upon, right or wrong, is that we are working out of a state of deficit. So therefore, how we as young men manifest that is I've got to get my share. Because I don't have enough, I've got to get my share. And one way we do that, or Jacob did that actually points to us as well, is I got to grab. I got to grab all I can get. And this is, I don't know, would you say this is a high cultural value or not so much? To grab, to go get and grab all you can. What do you think?
I just, I don't know why, it just popped across my mind because we had an ad in our society. Very typical, grab all the gusto you can get.
Yeah, it's been a while since that's been out. That's why I ask it. You know, is it really that? Yeah,
that's our culture.
Yeah.
That's that.
What about the second one? I must manipulate. I've got to go in and manipulate circumstance. Grabbing is, I'm going for it. Overtly just going for it and grabbing it. The hand grabbing and clenching and clawing. The manipulation is much more strategic and very much a picture here in the second piece where this is pre-planning and this is, and for me to get what I want, I've got to manipulate circumstances. Again, driven, how much, again.
I don't think it has to be either or. I think it can be both and.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I think what we grab for, what we manipulate for, possibly changes as cultural shifts occur. I've been thinking some of what I've read recently in terms of quote-unquote the millennials.
Uh-huh.
And I think maybe our generation grabbed for material comfort and security. From what I read, millennials tend to grab for experience.
Huh, good. Yeah, good. And what you're recognizing is there's a shift in thinking, but what you're stating, but there's still the same core dynamics occurring. Yeah. We're going to leave it here. We're going to get to the third one next week, and then we'll have, I want to give a lot of time for table time on this one. So we'll pick up here next week. We'll do a short review and then up here next week. So.
A few weeks back, I mentioned Elizabeth Fourier and her brother Matt.